The world champion Domaraju Gukesh makes his way to the playing hall. He is playing in his hometown, the Quantbox Chennai Grandmasters, and he will be looking to make a good start in this tournament. He drew his first game against Nihal Sarin, and now in the second round, he faces none other than the man in form, Alireza Firouzja. There we have Alireza coming into the game. Alireza has been in top shape recently at the Norway Chess. He almost won that event, and in spite of many difficulties with his leg where he was injured, he kept playing on and on, showing what a big fighter he is. Clashes between Gukesh and Alireza have always been super exciting. In fact, Alireza was the only one to beat Gukesh during the FIDE Candidates 2024, where Gukesh won the event and then eventually went on to become the world champion. And let's see what this clash holds for us. Firouzja is in the lead right now with 1 out of 1. All other games had ended in draws. The players are ready. The arbiter comes in, starts the clock. And there you see, the clock starts now. And this, dear friends, is the neuro game of the day.
In chess and in life, lack of attention and focus costs you games and key moments. Instead of going for that third cup of coffee or that energy drink that overstimulates you or gives you jitters, try Neurogum. It's viral in the US. It has a clinically proven blend of natural caffeine that gives alertness and L-theanine that gives you calm and stable focus without the jitters or the crash. Try Neurogum, link is in the description.
Alireza, playing with the white pieces, opens the game with pawn to e4. And Gukesh responds back with e5. e5 has been Gukesh's go-to weapon against 1e4. He does play the Caro-Kann recently, on and off, but not in classical games. Knight to c6. And I think when two players want to fight it out, like Alireza and Gukesh want to here, then the opening really doesn't matter so much. We have the Ruy Lopez on the board, a6, and Firouzja will go in for the main line, bishop to a4, and knight to f6 is the main move, attacking the pawn on e4, and Firouzja castles. Will Gukesh go for the open Spanish? No, he goes for the closed Spanish with bishop e7. Notice that by blocking the e file, rook e1, he was threatening to take this pawn, and now rook e1 defends it. b5, hitting the bishop. The bishop will come back to this long diagonal. This is all well known, played in thousands and thousands of games. And what will become exciting is where is the new idea flowing from. Now, c3 is the main move, but that could lead to the marshal, and that's why h3 is known as the anti-marshal, because d5 no longer is such a great move. d3 played. And white is going for a more measured approach here. But once you play d6 and the pawn is defended, knight a5 becomes a real threat. So you need to deal with it, and you see Alireza dealing with it in a very interesting way. He goes bishop d2, controlling the a5 square, and Gukesh plays knight to b8. He wants to relocate his knight to d7 in the spirit of the Breyer variation of the Ruy Lopez. a4 played, striking on the queen side. Now knight d7 seems like a natural move. The knight is threatening to come to c5 to attack the bishop as well as the pawn. And so Firouzja goes knight to c3. Now here's an interesting moment. If you go knight c5, then most likely you are sacrificing a pawn but giving up this. Or maybe he wants to just drop back bishop a2 because this is defended. So it's possible, and Gukesh avoids it. He first defends this structure with c6, and now Firouzja takes. And I think it's very important to take back with the a pawn, because if you take back with the c pawn, the d5 square does get a bit weakened. So a takes b5 taken, and now the rooks are going to get traded. So he takes on a8, queen takes a8, controlling the open a file makes sense. Yes, he takes it. And now a very well-known maneuver is knight e2, knight g3. You put your knight on the other side, which is useful. But Firouzja goes directly for knight h4. And you can see what he's threatening. He wants to come to f5. He wants to put his knight here. He wants to bring his queen in. The bishop already looks here. The other bishop is here. So Gukesh is like, sorry, Alireza, you don't get entry here. I'm going to play g6. Now bishop h6. Attacking the pawn. Attacking the rook on f8. Rook e8. Gukesh plays this calmly. And now queen to f3. So you can see the pressure is mounting on Gukesh. But bishop f8. Gukesh is like, my position is solid. My knights are defending each other. f7 is guarded for now. I'm trading off the bishops. You take. I'll take back with the rook. All is well. All is well. Yes, the dark squares do look a bit weak. And this is a very important theme that you have to remember. That the dark squares are weak. And you can see that Firouzja already is looking in this direction. He wants to come to h6. Maybe swing his knight over to g5. Bring his other knight into the game. So queen d8. The queen rushes back to the safety of the... to keep the black king safe. Queen comes to h6. Now look at the timings on the clock. Gukesh already down to 36 minutes. He's thought a lot. Knight to c5 played, attacking the bishop on b3. So the bishop has to drop back. Bishop a2. And maybe bishop c8, bishop e6. Yes, that's the plan, because the bishop did not do much on this diagonal. So he goes bishop c8. He would like to come to e6. Now knight comes to f3. He would like to go to g5. That was the plan we were all thinking about. But I think he's in time to play bishop to e6. Well, first, Gukesh's hand going towards the b pawn. He pushes b4. I wonder if this is a good idea, because it does give up like knight d1, knight d3, knight c4, the c pawn. So knight d1 played. And you have queen to a5. Gukesh is going for the counter attack. You know, I thought he would go for the trade of the bishops, but Gukesh wants to create his own play on the queen side. Bishop c4. Is he also thinking of coming into a1? I mean, that would be a bit too much, I guess. b3 he plays. Looking here at the e1 rook, so the knight can't move. And yes, it's a pawn sacrifice. Bishop b3. But he wants to take. Pawn takes. That's Gukesh for you. In any position, he tries to create this complex play. And that's a good example here. He could have quietly played something simpler, but he goes for counterplay. Now queen b4. So he's attacking here. d3 is weak. b2 is weak. But you remember, the queen is away from the black king. And this is why three pieces around the black king starts to look a bit dangerous. Now d3 is under attack. And Firouzja goes queen h4. Maybe better was knight g5, because if you take the d3 pawn, suddenly rook d1, rook d6 is hanging. But queen h4, attacking the knight on f6. Now this part of the game is tremendously difficult to understand. Knight h5. Okay, king g7 was possible, but Gukesh wants to go here. Queen to e7, attacking the pawn. Now quickly come back, trade the queens. You should be completely okay. But knight f4, Gukesh makes a mistake. He tries to win this pawn on d3, but in doing so, he's giving up d6. He's going to also weaken the e5 pawn. The c6 pawn is also extremely weak. And so Alireza Firouzja now starts to think over the board. He has just 5 minutes. Gukesh has 4 minutes. Remember, there's no increment after 40th move. Queen takes d6. The game is reaching a very important moment. Now rook e2 with the idea of getting the rook to d2 seems like a good idea. He plays rook b1. Fine. I mean, clearly you can't take this pawn. Your knight would get pinned. So f6 played by Gukesh, but that's a huge mistake. That's because the knight is coming to d2 here. And then the rook can come to a1 and enter here, and the 7th rank is tremendously weak. Now notice, if you go rook a1 directly, queen b2 attacks f2. But knight d2 found by Alireza. And now Can he find rook a1 with just 34 seconds there? But he goes wrong. He goes knight c4. He doesn't find this. That was a very big chance. And now Gukesh can go back with his knight because his knight is hanging. Knight queen takes d3 is hanging here. Gukesh has 1 minute 48 seconds. And he goes knight f4. A good move. Because now the knight is looking here. King comes to h2. Just doing away with all the threats as such. And bishop e6. Attacking the knight. So Gukesh back in the game now. Rook c1 defending it. And now rook f7. Just keeping everything controlled. But he takes on c4. And now rook takes c4 is a strong move with the knight jumping here. c6 weak. It's just very, very powerful, this position. You know, queen is coming in. Rook can enter in here. So Gukesh in big trouble. But he takes with the knight, giving Gukesh another chance. This time, he can just play safely. I wonder why Alireza didn't take with the rook. I understand that he was a bit afraid of the b2 pawn falling, but it was not a big thing. Okay, the game has had so many turns until now, but nothing has been decided yet. Rook f7. Firouzja goes rook c2, calmly defending himself. Gukesh down to 33 seconds. So both players trying to figure out things with very little time. Queen b3 and now knight to e3. Defending the rook and threatening rook c6. Once the rook enters, it's big trouble. King g7. And now you can take here, but you can also take with the queen, keeping this guarded. Yes, queen takes c6. And Firouzja once again, clear extra pawn, better. But look at his threat now. He wants to come queen e1, knight e2. Gukesh creating his ideas. Okay, take the queen is a dangerous decision because you don't know if you are fine here. But he goes rook b7. I mean, a queen trade would give Gukesh excellent drawing chances. So Firouzja now has to make a split second decision whether he should trade the queens or not. He doesn't. He goes queen c8. And now Gukesh comes back rook f7. Rook c7 is very powerful. But he goes queen e8, threatening rook c8. But queen e1 with the idea of knight e2. This is a very powerful move. Can Gukesh find this counter-attacking idea? Queen g1 is a checkmate. Nothing less. But as the time ticks down, you have just 30 seconds to make your decision. He goes rook e7. And that is not a good move. It's now just simply queen d8. Keeps an eye on the rook. Doesn't let the queen move. The thing here is you need to build some time lead on the clock. Because every time if you come down to a few seconds and make your move, that's not so easy to play. Queen d8. He comes back knight e6. And now Alireza has a tactic. He goes knight to d5. This is what he had planned. Forking the two pieces. Gukesh takes on d8. Knight takes b4. White is a pawn up. It's clear. But black has some chances. And the reason is black pieces are active. The rook first gets on the b file. The knight is ready to jump into d4. Knight e6. And now b4. I guess he should have stopped b4 physically with rook b3. But b4 played. And Alireza is in the driver's seat. But Gukesh tries to create some tension. f5. Rook to c6. Attacking the knight. King f7. And now b5 is a powerful move. If you take on b5, I have rook e6 followed by knight c7. So he goes to d4. Attacking the rook and the pawn. Check here. Maybe not the best to trade. He should have kept with rook f6 here and b6. But takes. And now in this position, Gukesh is still a pawn down. But king e7 is a very good move. He finds it. King e7. He wants to come here. Okay, b6, king d7 or king d6. Both are fine. He goes king d6. And believe it or not, the position has somehow equalized. The knight endgame should be winning, but it is not. King c6. stopping the pawn now, threatening to take on e4, f3 played. I mean, on first look, this should be totally winning, but it's not. The reason is that the knight can come via e6 or b3. He goes knight b3 to attack c5, so the king has to defend it, and then you go knight d7 and win this. So king g3, and Gukesh goes in the wrong direction. He had to go knight c5, knight d7 to win this, because now knight f6. And the point is, if you take here, my king simply, he takes on b6, my king simply enters. But Firouzja makes an unbelievable decision. He doesn't go here. He comes back to f2. Wow. I mean, clearly chess is too complex to be played in 30 seconds, and Gukesh makes a huge mistake. He had to play h6. And the reason is very deep, because in the variation that can happen in the game, where knight d7, Firouzja goes after this pawns, and Gukesh wins this pawn, the pawn on h6 would be much better placed than the one on h5. This looks very close to a draw, but it is not. Knight f6, and now imagine the same line. Now the pawn was on h6, the king would never get to enter here. It's such a deep point which you need a lot of time to understand, and Firouzja now completely winning. Gukesh knows it, that he can no longer defend this position. The h5 pawn is falling, and once you have two extra pawns, it's very, very difficult to defend this. The knight comes back to f4. You want to take on h5, king here, and now simply g3 with the idea of knight takes h5 is game over. He goes king e4, knight takes on h5, and Firouzja has two extra pawns this entire game, where there were so many ups and downs, but clearly all the things were close to either Firouzja winning or a draw, and that is a very difficult spot to be in as Gukesh. Knight f6 played, and now the h pawn is simply rolling down the board. This is defended. There's absolutely no way to continue. Gukesh resigns. Alireza scores his second consecutive win in this tournament. What an amazing performance by Firouzja, already having a points lead in the match. And we've kind of fast forwarded this section, but it's very interesting to see that Gukesh asking Alireza of all that he could have done to play better. And I love this part where the players are analyzing, trying to think what they could have done better. And Gukesh, well, after this loss, his main thing is to continue, keep on learning. That's a very inspiring attitude. Meanwhile, Alireza Firouzja, he's on fire. In round 3, he will face Nihal Sarin. And will Nihal be able to stop him? Is the big question. The players finish their analysis. Gukesh comes out. He's going back to his room. This is happening in the Westin Hotel in Chennai. So if you are in and around Chennai, do visit the venue. The players are staying in the same hotel and playing on the first floor, I believe. And yeah, not a happy day for Gukesh, but there are 5 more rounds to go, and we'll see how things pan out for him. Meanwhile, Alireza Firouzja, this guy has been absolutely unstoppable in general, and here with 2 out of 2, he'll hope to make a very, very good show out of this. For now, I hope you enjoyed this game. This is Sagar Shah signing off. Bye bye.
Prominent actress. After the game,